All right, so welcome to your personalized news deep dive.
Hmm.
It's almost like having, your own private news briefing tailored just for you.
Ah, very nice.
Today, we're going to be covering both international and domestic news and pulling from a pretty wide range of sources,
Yeah.
everything from the Gateway Pundit, Front Page Index, and then, you got Politico, Daily Kos, even the New York Times in there.
Wow, so we got a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, so let's dive right in.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so let's start with some international affairs. So the Gateway Pundit has a report, and it's claiming that dozens of NATO officers are encircled with Ukrainian troops
Oh, wow.
in a collapsing Kursk pocket.
The Kursk region. Yeah, it's got, significant historical and strategic importance. You know it's in Western Russia. You know it's near the Ukrainian border. And it was the site of a major battle in World War II. So if these claims about, the encircled NATO officers are true, this could potentially escalate the conflict beyond Ukraine
Oh, wow.
and maybe even draw NATO into a direct confrontation with Russia.
That'd be a huge escalation with really unpredictable
Yeah,
consequences.
it'd be a lot. You know, kind of interestingly, there is a stark contrast in how conflicts are portrayed depending on the source. So, like, we were just talking about the Gateway Pundit, but then you got the Schwartz report, and they feature this UN report accusing Israeli forces of genocidal acts and sexual violence in Gaza and the West Bank.
Oh, wow.
I think this kind of juxtaposition highlights the importance of critically evaluating information, especially in conflict zones. Narratives are often weaponized.
It definitely underscores the need for media literacy and recognizing potential biases in reporting.
Mm.
Okay, so shifting gears to a different international issue now. Daily Kos is reporting on a rather unusual case involving Venezuelan nationals, and these nationals were deported to El Salvador by the Trump administration.
This case is particularly interesting because it involves the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Yeah, so it's a law dating back to the early days of the United States, and the Trump administration invoked this act to initiate the deportations, but a federal judge blocked them. So now you have this potential legal and political standoff.
The Alien Enemies Act of 1798. That sounds so archaic.
Yeah, it is, and its use raises some pretty serious ethical and legal questions. It's got a controversial history.
Yeah.
Most notably, being used to justify the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II.
Right.
So it's crucial to consider the implications of reviving it, especially in the context of modern human rights and due process concerns.
Especially given Venezuela's strong condemnation of this, comparing the use of this act to some of the darkest episodes in human history.
Exactly. And just to kind of complicate matters further, the Salvadoran president actually supports the deportations. And then you have reports suggesting, pretty harsh conditions at the CCOT facility, which is where these deportees are being held. So this case really exposes the complexities of, immigration policy, executive power, and international relations.
For sure. All right, so turning our attention to domestic politics now.
Hmm.
I came across this quote in Front Page Index. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is boasting about reviving warrior ethos in the U.S. military.
Hmm.
However, the New York Times is raising concerns about Department of Energy budget cuts.
Uh-huh.
And these cuts are impacting, key personnel at the National Nuclear Security Administration,
Mm-hmm.
including nuclear scientists, bomb engineers, safety experts, all these really crucial roles.
Yeah.
These 2 points kind of highlight, a potential contradiction in the administration's approach to national security.
On one hand, there's this emphasis on bolstering a particular military mindset. But then on the other hand, budget cuts could weaken the very expertise that is needed to maintain a credible nuclear deterrent.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to project strength while simultaneously undermining the foundation of that strength.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It raises questions about whether these actions are, truly aligned with their stated goals. And this theme of, potential contradictions extends to other actions by the Trump administration.
Okay.
So there's a Schwartz report piece, and it's revealing that Trump's FBI is moving to criminally charge major climate groups.
Whoa.
Yeah, and this even includes, Habitat for Humanity.
Really?
Yeah, that received EPA grants under the Biden administration.
That's surprising. What are the charges based on?
The FBI is alleging possible criminal violations, including conspiracy to defraud the United States. But the details are still, kind of vague. This move seems to be part of like a broader crackdown on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, DEI, as reported by Schwartz Report and Truth Out.
So it's not just about climate groups then. There seems to be this more targeted effort to dismantle certain types of initiatives.
Yeah, it seems that way. Schwartz Report also revealed that Trump issued this executive order,
Okay.
potentially impacting law firms that are representing his political adversaries. And Crooks and Liars is highlighting this move as well, expressing concerns about the potential for abuse of power and intimidation tactics.
It's funny. There's this Daily Kos cartoon, and it's depicting Trump driving a car labeled "Democracy" off a cliff. And while that's maybe symbolic, I think it captures the anxieties surrounding these actions.
Yeah, symbolism can be pretty powerful. And this cartoon, I think, reflects, a growing concern about the direction of American politics and the perceived threats to democratic norms and institutions.
Definitely. All right, so let's shift our focus to the overall political landscape now. According to both HuffPost and Twitchy, the Democratic Party's approval rating is plummeting. Real Clear Politics even claims Democrats are doubling down on dumb and failing to offer viable solutions.
It kind of indicates this growing dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party. But, what's interesting is this dissatisfaction might not be limited to just one party.
Really?
Yeah, so there's an Emerson College poll, and it was featured in the Daily Ghost, and it suggests that even Republicans are skeptical of Trump's trade policies.
So there's potential dissent even within Trump's own party.
It seems so. You got perspectives from Mahablog and the Gen Z perspective, and they suggest we might be witnessing like the early stages of a potential political realignment, where traditional party loyalties are being questioned and new coalitions are potentially forming.
That would be a pretty significant shift.
Yeah.
Before we kind of delve deeper into that, though, I do want to highlight this human interest story from Daily Kos. It's about these two congresswomen. One's a Democrat and one's a Republican.
Oh, wow.
And they're pushing to change congressional rules to allow remote voting after giving birth.
Oh, that's great. It's really heartening to see, these bipartisan efforts, especially on an issue that directly impacts women in politics and promotes greater inclusivity in government.
Yeah, it's a glimmer of hope, in an otherwise politically turbulent landscape. Now, before we move on to the next section of our deep dive, I do want to touch on this recurring theme that we've encountered, and that's the erosion of trust in institutions.
And we see this erosion of trust, reflected in articles from The Subconscious, Worst News Outlet of the Week, and Journalism's Year of Confessions Needs More. It really connects to a lot of the stories that we've discussed today.
How does that erosion of trust, how does that manifest itself in these particular articles?
So The Subconscious, they draw this really fascinating connection between societal beliefs and mental health.
Huh.
They argue that, the incoherence of materialism, this worldview that prioritizes the material over spiritual or emotional experiences, well, they say that contributes to a sense of meaninglessness. And that, in turn, can lead to depression and other mental health issues.
So then that sense of meaninglessness, could that actually contribute to, the distrust that we see in these institutions?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When people, when they feel lost or adrift, they're more susceptible to extreme ideologies and distrustful narratives, things that offer a sense of certainty or purpose. And this can create this vicious cycle where distrust fuels further disillusionment and makes it even harder to address, societal challenges effectively.
So it seems like we're seeing this breakdown of shared understanding and this growing inability to engage in constructive dialogue.
Yeah, exactly. And, Worst News Outlet of the Week points to the rise of, these hyper-partisan media outlets, the ones that prioritize sensationalism and outrage over accuracy and nuance. And this further erodes trust in, traditional media and contributes to the spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories.
And Journalism's Year of Confessions Needs More. That article kind of echoes this concern. It's highlighting a series of scandals and retractions that have plagued, these prominent news organizations. And it's undoubtedly damaged public trust in the media's ability to report truthfully and objectively.
It's important to remember that, journalism, just like any profession, is susceptible to, human error and biases. But these high-profile failures, they've really fueled this growing skepticism. And that makes it really difficult to discern credible sources from those that are, peddling misinformation.
So how do we, as informed citizens, how do we navigate this increasingly complex and often unreliable information landscape?
Well, one key strategy is to diversify your news sources. Don't rely solely on one outlet or perspective. Seek out information from a range of sources, including those that, challenge your own views. It's also essential to be aware of, potential biases. Every news outlet has a perspective, and it's crucial to understand how that perspective might be shaping the reporting.
So it sounds like it's more about cultivating critical thinking skills than finding some, like, mythical, unbiased source.
Exactly, yeah. And it's also crucial to be skeptical of, sensationalized headlines or information that seems too good to be true. Clickbait often sacrifices accuracy and nuance for, these attention-grabbing headlines. So take the time to read beyond the headline and consider the source of the information carefully.
So it's really about slowing down and being more deliberate in our news consumption.
Precisely. And lastly, don't be afraid to fact check. There are numerous reputable fact checking organizations that can help you verify information. Remember, we have a responsibility to be, active participants in the news ecosystem, not just passive consumers.
It can be a little overwhelming to constantly, confront all this negative news. How do we balance, like, staying informed with protecting our mental well-being?
I think it's crucial to, prioritize self-care and set boundaries. Take breaks from the news. Engage in activities that, bring you joy. Focus on positive stories, ones that offer hope and inspiration. Staying informed is important, but, it shouldn't come at the expense of your mental health.
Earlier, we discussed this Emerson College poll that indicated some skepticism of Trump's trade policies, even among Republicans. Could this signal, like, a shift within the Republican Party?
This poll, it's a fascinating data point. It suggests that, Trump support might not be as unwavering as it appears. It also reveals the potential for dissenting voices, within the party. And that could potentially create space for more moderate viewpoints to emerge.
So then could this lead to a more fragmented Republican Party or even like a third-party challenge?
Those are definitely, possibilities. The Republican Party is facing internal tensions between those who remain loyal to Trump and those who are seeking, a different direction. How these tensions play out will have a significant impact on the future of the party and American politics as a whole, really.
The story about the two congresswomen pushing for remote voting after childbirth, that offered this really rare glimpse of bipartisanship. Does this suggest that there are, like, other areas where, common ground might be possible despite the current polarization?
It's tempting to succumb to cynicism and assume that, compromise is impossible. But this story, along with those dissenting voices within the Republican Party that we were just talking about, I think it suggests that opportunities for collaboration still exist. It might not be easy, but, it's crucial to identify shared values and concerns that can serve as a foundation for bridging divides.
So it seems like recognizing our shared humanity and focusing on issues that, transcend partisan lines is really crucial.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of complex and challenging topics today, and it's clear that the news isn't just, a collection of isolated events, but a tapestry of interconnected stories, stories that reflect the intricacies of our world.
It's easy to feel, overwhelmed by the constant influx of information. But by staying informed, thinking critically, and engaging in constructive dialogue, we can contribute to a more informed and engaged society. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in kind of shaping the future.
Yeah.
But how do we move forward in a world where trust in institutions is eroding, misinformation is rampant, and political polarization just seems to be deepening?
Yeah, that's the fundamental question, right? I think one crucial step is recognizing that, we're all part of the solution here. We need to engage in critical thinking, demand accountability from our leaders, and, actively participate in shaping the narratives that define our world.
So it sounds like a call to action, like a reminder that we can't just be, passive observers, but we have to be active participants in shaping the future that, we want to see.
Exactly. We need to cultivate a sense of shared responsibility and engage in constructive dialogue, even with those who hold different views. I think it's through those, sometimes difficult conversations that we can begin to rebuild trust and find some common ground.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity and focusing on the values and goals that unite us
Yeah.
rather than the differences that, divide us.
Exactly. And it's also essential to, support organizations and initiatives that promote media literacy, critical thinking, and civil discourse.
Uh-huh.
These are, I think, crucial tools for navigating this complex information landscape and, ultimately building a more informed and engaged society.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from international conflicts and domestic politics to the erosion of trust and the importance of individual action. It's been a pretty thought-provoking journey through the complexities of our world.
Yeah, it has. It's been a pleasure exploring these issues with you. My hope is that this deep dive has provided you with some valuable insights and, maybe even a renewed sense of agency in navigating these challenging times.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the news. Remember, staying informed is not just about absorbing information. It's about, engaging with it critically, questioning assumptions, and seeking out diverse perspectives. It's through this active engagement that we can become more informed citizens and, really be capable of contributing to a more just and equitable world.